So, we had a video to play. It's due to time base.
I sent it to everybody.
Okay. So I highly recommend, just because otherwise, like, what am I up here standing for and talking to you guys? So please go after this, watch the whole video in its entirety. It's an amazing story, but it's not my story. It's an amazing story that truly is God's miracle and what He does when He works through man. So it was the best time of my life. All I did was just like in I think it's Matthew that says it, that many are called but few are chosen. I was called upon and I answered, and just like that wheelbarrow, there's belief in God and there's trust in God. I trust that guy has went through that the zip line before, but hop in the barrel with him blindfolded, that's full trust. So please watch that video, and then it'll make sense of why I'm up here as well. So my name is Staff Sergeant Dennis Price. I'm with 3rd Force Recon. I just switched to the reserve about last year. I served about 15 years after duty. 1st Recon, 1st Force Recon, 2nd Force Recon. Then I spent some time at JSOC. I did some instructor time. Then came to 3rd Force Recon, and now I'm out here for the UDP deployment. I'm going to go ahead over this stuff just because at one time it meant so much to me, but it still was just, it was pride, and it was titles, and it was a facade that filled a void that did not complete. So Force Recon, Scout Sniper, Ranger, and then actual JSOC Ranger. I'm the first Marine to teach at SIFSIC, Army Special Forces Sniper School. I teach once a year there as the main field craft instructor for that. I devoted my life to my adult life, to my career, and I combined my life and my career as one. So that's what led me in that direction. I grew up Christian, as in most Americans. I was born and raised in the church. I went to church every Sunday of my life. And then I joined the Marine Corps about 17 years old, 11th grade, summer vacation, like most of you guys, delayed entry program. The wars were kicking at the time. I was like 14, something like that. Watched September 11th happen. I was an outsider, like a wildling, adrenaline junkie, and like if I wasn't in the Marine Corps, I'd be in prison for something really stupid too. So 12th grade, graduated. 5 months later, was in Iraq as a machine gunner. I bring this all because I convinced, just like many of you, and the wars are dying now, but I convinced myself, just like how you guys probably heard, that when you go to war, that there's no place for God in war. Like, how many of you guys heard that before? How many times have you guys convinced? How many times have you guys convinced yourself that that is true as well? Like, and it's hard to say it now because there's no actual war, but there's some things you do there, and it leads to desperation, and you think that that's it. But all defined through falling on my own face multiple times, that just like the story of Gideon, that is completely inaccurate and not true. That you were at, like my buddy Chad Robichaux, who I did that 2-man operation in Afghanistan with, he wrote a book called The Unfair Advantage, and he spoke how God is an unfair advantage when you go to war. Just like the story of Gideon in the Bible, just like any other story, like David, or anything else from there. So I was in Iraq as a machine gunner. I convinced myself that God has no place here. Like, what I'm here to do is just make sure everyone survives and everything from there. So we get blown up 6 times while we're there. The first 2 times, I think it's awakening of the reality of what's happening. It was about 16 years ago when it happened. We hit the first, I think it was the 3rd time we got blown up. We were coming from Fallujah to Ramadi, and that's where we were stationed. We did that trip a million times. We go under a bridge, and if you guys are familiar with convoy operations, as you go under the bridge, the lead guy is supposed to turn under the bridge, so if someone drops a grenade, it doesn't drop it down the gunner's hatch. The gunner then turns reverse, so if there is a target to prosecute, he prosecutes that guy and eliminates the threat from there. The first vehicle rarely gets hit in a convoy. It's usually the next guy or two, depending on what. So we're coming back from Fallujah. The first vehicle does exactly what he does, complacency. The next vehicle does not do that. The next vehicle was the vehicle in front of me. He does not follow the directly in front of him. If that's complacency, if that's lazy, if that's just the turd who was driving, however it was. But he ran over an IED, so the guys in front of me gets blown up. I watched it all happen. Immediately, within like the next minute, a rocket shoots in between me and the vehicle. And at this time, it's nighttime. During the rules of engagement, the ROE, we start getting lit up with an ID-initiated ambush. Small arms fire from the southeast, which was the city of Ramadi now, which is to my left. I'm up there, what feels like an eternity, behind the machine gun and trying to find out what's going on. I just watched my buddies just get extremely decimated in there. I was so filled with rage and hate, discontent, everything that you see in like Vietnam movies to if you experience war, and like bitterness, everything from there. I wanted to kill all these guys. Now they're in the city shooting. We couldn't find them. At the time, POO, point of origin, was not a thing for ROE. You couldn't kill anyone and just start shooting the city, collateral damage. So we have to find PID, which is positive identification. So we're seeing these muzzle blasts. They're throughout there, and we're trying to kill these dudes, but they're still just in the city. And, all this to say, it seemed about 3 hours as we're just still stuck in this ambush. EOD is not coming. We all comm just right on time, no comm right off the bat, and we're trying to figure out what's going on. How do we get off the X? Now, that story has, that moment, DJ Price from small town Pennsylvania in like a town of 1,000 people died that day. I was baptized by fire and forged from steel and came out from there feeling nothing but bitter and rage. In that moment, I walked probably 12 to 13 years of my life, my adult life, filled with, I was either pissed off or super pissed off. Sorry if I slip up. If you guys listen to Pink Floyd, I think I used to say that the best thing that describes me was the song Comfortably Numb. I felt like a shell, that there was nothing inside me, that I couldn't feel love anymore. I couldn't feel anything like that. I felt, just like I said, bitter, rage, and that was the only feelings I could feel. I let that fire consume my life. I try to fill this empty void that, well, like I said, before I went to Iraq, growing up as a Christian, or going to church every Sunday, I try to fill that void that was still missing in my soul. And just like the Samaritan woman, I needed that water that couldn't be quenched. I didn't know at the time that's what it was. So what do? We replace it with alcohol. I got super hardcore. Like I said before, I was already an adrenaline junkie. I despise drugs, so I replaced it with almost every other thing than that. Hardcore drinking. Slept with almost anything that could walk. And it was just like cocaine. Never done it or anything like that, but it's just temporary bump until just like the Samaritan woman, that thirst tried to be quenched again. And I tried to fill my soul with that, and all I did was I needed more. I was like, I could never replace that height of my life, back up on the machine gun and going into combat and doing that again. Well, immediately I did 6 back-to-back deployments, and now, I did 7 total now. And then in the Marine Corps I did 7, and then with the mercenary or the private military organizations like Blackwater as a sniper or other OGA ones, I did 6 past that. So I dedicated my life to going back to combat because I was trying to fill that void. I used alcohol to mask that. I fought at the drop of a hat anytime. I was out of control. That furnace, that rage that built inside me, that fire was at such a hot temperature, I could not control it. And I was way out of hand through most of my life. And I kept trying to quench it with humanly materialistic needs. And then I eventually came back to Christ. But just like that, God was always there. He was there the whole entire time. He was there, that brought that vehicle in front of me, that decimated those guys. They lived. They got really messed up, but they lived. And that's the difference. Sadly, I found God, but all my buds all the machine gunners who were with me, like 4 of them already blew their brains out, everything from there. They chose the same exact path I eventually found God again, or I let God. That's the biggest thing. God was always there. He's just like if you guys are parachutists or free fallers. He was always there. He was always the reserve. Even though my main did not work, I chose not to pull my reserve. So then I go to different special operations schools. I start going to, Marine Force Recon, this selection, that selection, sniper school, Special Forces sniper school, all this crazy stuff. And I'm like, I bring God, and I used it like an item. I was like, God, please come to my life. Please, God, if you let me pass this shooting qual, I'll do anything like this. And it was just another thing that I brought him in my life. And then again, another deployment would come, and then back to back deployments, back to schools. And then I was like, God put me on this world. Like after 15 years of doing that, I was like, it would only make sense. God put me on this earth to be his war vessel. That why else would I go to all these different? I maxed out almost every Marine Corps Special Operations school. Then I started going to Army ones, and I was like taking the top of my classes, and I'm like, this makes sense. God wants me to do this. So I channeled a lot of my anger and my energy and everything in there to just achieving different things, false titles that would make me feel like I accomplished something that anything else. Then going and like all that rage, then I would channel it from fighting to fighting on the mat, to fighting jiu-jitsu, kickboxing, boxing, Muay Thai, judo, and then competing on the mat for 5 years. So I channeled I thought I could hone it in. I thought I could control what was going on, and I had it. God, no, I got this. Hey, thanks, you're in my life. But as my wristband says, I am second. He was not you see over there, that's some of you old school guys with the front sight post. He was not my front sight post. And no matter, just like if you guys know about fundamentals of marksmanship, I was staring at everything else that should have been blurry besides my front sight post, which was God. That my relationship with Jesus Christ held off to the side, and I used it as a convenience whenever I needed it again, even though God was there the whole time. So I continue this as it comes. I start having kids. I go highs and lows just like most people do. And then everything's starting to come to an end at 15 years. And I'm still kind of trying to replace the void that's kind of there. I'm still living it, but he's still not my front sight post. He is blurry, and I'm staring at the circle, if you guys are familiar with iron sights, or even the picture. I was staring at the picture, and I was still missing I'm shots on target, but I'm not in the 5 ring. I'm in the 4 ring. I'm getting there. I'm successful sometimes, and my life was going up and down just like that until my 4th child was born. 15 years in the service, gunny select, just came from JSOC, first Marine ever do this certain type of program with RRC, all this other stuff. Had my 4th child. She's born with 2 rare diseases. That moment changed my life. She was born with something called BWS, Beckwith-Wiedemann syndrome, and hyperinsulinism, which forces me out of the Marine Corps right before early retirement at 15 years. So the Marine Corps would not give me a 3 to 5 month waiver for that. I just got gunny select. I had to throw that, and I chose my career in life over my family before on my 2nd child when she had health issues. And I felt just like some of you guys, if you're infantry, if you're a Force Recon guy, or maybe if you like hiking, if you're in the woods, you're in the jungle out here, and you're on a trail. Like if you start going off that trail, you start getting a thicket. You feel every foot, every inch of that thicket, and that's life. Sometimes life is thick. Sometimes life is easier. But when you walk and you go astray from the path of God, that's the trail. And only you decide to break away, and I'm telling you, you're going to feel every foot of that movement, and it is only your ignorance and your pig-headedness to just hop back on that trail. I'm telling you because once my daughter was born like that, and I got handed a bill for $1.2 million for medical because they life-flighted my daughter and my wife to the Children's Hospital of Philadelphia, and I had to then leave the Marine Corps before early retirement. They wouldn't grant me the waiver. They didn't give me the gunny thing, and then I lost all of that stuff exactly the same time, $1.2 million. How am I going to pay for this? God put me on this world. Like, what do I do? I spent my whole life dedicating to fighting in combat and to being the most lethal weapon. God, this is what you wanted me to do. So I did what most guys do, and I joined Blackwater, or what used to be called Blackwater. I joined a private military company as a sniper and started, well, how else can I do this? How can I pay this? Well, a six-figure job starting to going to war sounds like a pretty good deal if you need it for your family. So as I go through this, and I try to figure out what's going on, before I left, I felt so hopeless. And not I felt so hopeless. The common enemy, the devil, got in my ear. And just like how most of you guys, God is with you all times. Just like how he was with me, I chose to push him out. He was there for me the whole entire time. And when you are at your worst and you are hitting rock bottom and you let the devil into your ear and you let him preach his poison, sometimes that white noise is so loud it acts as a jammer. Just like in combat, it jams all signal. That was one of the 2 times in my life I could not feel the presence of God anymore. I was sitting there, get a bill for $1.2 million, left my career, burnt everything, dedicated my life to combat, all this other stuff like that, and then all the after effects of combat, of war, of everything that came with it. I convinced myself that the best way, I convinced myself, and I had absolutely no other reason not to blow my brains out. I was sitting there for 3 hours, working out in my garage, biking for 3 hours, intense, and trying to think of a single reason. And at like 3-4 hours, anything like that, I couldn't come up with one at all. Like I said, that white noise in my ear of that was my solution. My family will get $500,000. They're probably better without me. Hey, maybe this is because you dedicated your life, to taking lives, and you dedicated all this other stuff. Maybe it's because of this. And anything that you do, that white noise is going to get in there, and if you let it. And it was so loud that I could, like I said, it was jamming my signal with God, and I could not feel his presence. Hour 4 or 5, I'm sitting there with the gun in my hand, and I could not think of a single one. I called. Eventually, I call Gunny Kovar, which is now Master Sergeant Kovar, who was a Ranger instructor, one of my close friends and peer. And I was like, you know what? I hear all the time in Marine briefs, like, hey, if you're at that level, call someone. I was like, dude, I don't want to make this sound like it's a empty attempt, but like I'm on my last limb. Maybe he could give me one reason why not to. No one picks up. I call him, nothing. And I was like, wow, that's it, God. Received. Like, this is it. So, like I said, hour 4 or 5 is going by, gun in hand now. As I put it up, a random thought dawned on my head, an article I read 2 years ago. And it said, I'm not sure if you guys know, but if you're a parent, you commit suicide, your children are 10 times likely to then commit suicide. Had no clue, anything like that. Last thought in my head, and was about to be the last thought in my head. That ran through my head, and I was like, oh my God, how could I do something like this? Because I can't hack it. I can't fake it one more day. I can't fake it just enough for them to grow up and just deal with it and try to get any job and just work every single hour of my life to try to pay for this $1.2 million bill, to do and try to lead my family into a life that's worth living. That came through my head, and immediately I have 3 girls and 1 boy. I'm like, now the statistic of growing without a father. Incarceration rates for males, 10 times more likely to go to prison. Females, almost the same thing. It's like 10 or 30 more times likely to have preteen pregnancies. All this stuff is now the only reason why I'm still here today. And I still, probably once a week, if not once a month, once every 3 months, that is probably still the only reason why I keep holding on. So, but that moment when it happened, at the same exact time, I turn on the TV and I start listening to what's that called? It's like Cornerstone. I'm not sure wherever you guys are from, but Cornerstone station is a Christian station, and I was like, dude, I need help. That's it. Like I started trying to find programs. Like, if I want my kids to have a successful life, I need to get help. So then once I started getting help and started getting seen, I then started going back to God and allowing God to go in my life. I took a job with Blackwater, started getting paid through that, started going on the path. And then not just going on the path, but trying to rein it back in with God was like that. You know, you can try so many different techniques and whatever, but like ultimately I was hurting and I was trying to fill voids with anything that was not working. So eventually, I'm through the Blackwater. I worked for Blackwater for like almost a year or something like that, or what used to be called Blackwater. I'm walking in the hallway, and this is about September time frame. I'm walking in the hallway, and it felt like I got struck by lightning. And I say this story a lot because that is no other reason. I felt like I got struck by light. Every fiber in my being, every hair in my body was standing up on pins and needles. And that was the first and only time I heard the audible voice of God. And it says, "You have to go save them." And I was like, what the hell is going on? Like, what? I turn on the news. Afghanistan, Kabul is falling. It didn't fall yet. It was on its verge to falling. And I was like, oh my God. And I was like, what can I do? And then the next rebuttal came up, was like, anything. And I was, Roger, like, that's it. Like, I was like, well, what can I do? Like, that's what I hear. Like, everyone probably thinks the same thing. What can I do? What can I do? Well, I knew 10 people. Those 10 people knew 10 people, and those 10 people know 10 people. And when you are working with God and you have that as your supporting element, you can do anything. In 24 hours after I got contacted by someone who had an American family. It was an Alaskan dual citizen family in Kandahar with 6 kids. He needed extract. On the 6th day, his 14-year-old daughter and his 11-year-old daughter was going to be raped and sold off to the Taliban. I had 6 days. I got given a mission, I got given a timeline, and I needed to make it happen. I called every single person in my contact list who I called, and they called 24 hours later, I owned a 50-acre compound in Alaska. 24 hours after that, I had a 9-man joint special operations team with SEALs, SF, Force Recon, and 1 agency member. 24 hours after that, I had a plane and authorization to go. On the 4th or 5th day, 2 days before her getting raped and sold off to the Taliban, we pulled her out of that family, out of Kandahar, which was told us by the agency that it was a suicide mission and that no one will go down there because it's so hot, they won't even really support it. We went down and they threw a Hail Mary and we pulled them out, and after that, that's the difference between trust and belief. We knew, every single person who was with me knew it was a suicide mission. The agency told us it was a suicide mission. Regardless of the fact, there were Americans trapped behind enemy lines, and us, as Americans, left our own people there. Who are we as warriors? Who are we as Force Recon Marines? Who are we as guys who sit there and pray that we utilize and we get a mission? And just because it doesn't pay, we had to do it for free. I spent $55,000 to build this thing. And guess what? And who's going to pay? These guys who live in mud huts? You know, no. It's the right thing to do. And regardless, it doesn't matter. So we go and save these people. And the agency just thought it was a massive Hail Mary that we just did. So they shifted all assets and fire hosed us for 2 weeks, knocking out missions, saving families. 2 weeks, we saved 55 Americans out of Afghanistan. And then on that 2 week mark, I was standing in front of Congress and the Senate, briefing them of what I just did and what I could do in the future. I then got voted on, nominated, and approved to go and join what is now called Save Our Allies. So it's in the book of Saving Z's, which I highly recommend you guys read. It's not of what we did. Because we can do a lot. We have a whole bunch of special operators. We have some experience. We had some funding behind it to get planes, to get all these people. We had the know-how. But to get authorization to all this other stuff, it was God's miracle, and we were just a part of it. And it was such a blessing to be a massive part of that. So I highly recommend Saving Z's for that. Otherwise, it's Save Our Allies, what we formed. Once I was up there in the Senate, I met a guy named Chad Robichaud. Never met him before in my life. He was like, oh, wow, man, that was such an inspirational story. Tell me about what your career is. I told him just what I told you guys in that initial one. He's like, that is the same path. And I was in 3rd Force Recon also as a JSOC operator and did 8 deployments there. How would you like to go? And there's still Americans trapped there. How would you like to go to Afghanistan in a 2-man, behind enemy lines, unsupported, unarmed, to go save the rest of them. And I said, well, I told my wife before I came here, I told her, in order for evil to prevail, good men must stand by and do nothing. I'm going to say that again. So, in order for evil to prevail, good men must stand by and do nothing. So, I then followed up with Isaiah 6:8, which we talked about a whole bunch. And then God said unto thee, who shall I send? Who will go for us? And I said, here I am, send me. We pray all the time for missions. We pray all the time to be utilized. I'm telling you right now, I own a few companies, one for profit, one non-for-profit, just to do these missions for legal authorities. One of them is Heroes for Humanity. Another, I work for Mighty Oaks International, so I do a lot of international work in places you see on the news. But either way, like when we go to a different place and you're going to help and you're there for humanity, someone is like, who sent you? What country are you here for? I'm here under the banner of Jesus Christ, and he sent me and my special operators because he loves you. And now all we do is dedicate our lives to saving trafficked children, for sexual trafficked children. That's I'm not sure if you guys know. It is disgusting to look at, but the number one largest business in the world is human trafficking. The number one largest business in the world is human trafficking. Well, it takes two, because that means there's consumers out there. So what are you guys doing today? You know? So God sent me that message. And now, ever since Afghanistan, I went. So how we got into Afghanistan, long story. You could watch the video that Pastor Nick sent out. Highly recommend it. Super inspirational story, giving glory to God the whole entire time. Because everyone asks, like, what could I do? What could I do? Dude, you can go there all you want. Like, I ask, they're like, what are you guys gonna do in Ukraine? What are you guys gonna do in Taiwan? What are you guys gonna do somewhere else? I don't know. I have to consult. I got to consult the boss, man. I'm not feeling it like I felt in Afghanistan. I gotta see what's going on. I feel the calling, and most of the time, if there's a child or anything else like that, the answer is almost always yes. The answer should always be yes, and then if it's God's will, it's God's bill. I mentioned about payment before. He mentioned about payment before. If you are doing the will of God, God will find a way to pay for it. So if I can tell you guys anything, like I said, just like. My company motto, I have two of them. First, it's, in order for evil to prevail, good men must stand by and do nothing. Don't sit there and waste millions and millions of dollars of the most elite training, and you won't go do a mission because we're doing it for free, because it's the right thing to do. Because at one time, 20 years of war, America needed a warrior. Now the world needs a hero. And it doesn't pay, but it has a great retirement plan, and that's eternal life. So I'll leave off on two notes. So first, Mother Teresa said it best. I cannot change the world alone, but I can cast a stone across the waters to create many ripples. I can't go out there and do all the missions. Like, I'm trying to inspire all of you guys to do the same thing. Everyone's like, well, what can I do? What can I, dude, Harriet Tubman, she was not a special forces soldier. She was a 90-pound old little black lady who rarely had shoes, who was trekking across multiple states in the winter time without any shoes or anything like that, and doing the right thing. We all know it is, but someone along the lines clouded your judgment and told you cannot. Like, if that means through like legal terms, if that means like, oh, I don't know how to do it, well, guess what? What did Moses say? When God sent him the first time and said, go and free the people, the slaves of Egypt, he went there and was like, God, you got the wrong guy. And he's like, no, I don't get the wrong guy. You are the right guy. He goes, he's kicking stones. He's like, oh man, I don't know how I'm going to do this. He goes there. He's like, hey guys, I guess I'm going to free you. And they're like, no, you're not. Who are you? Who are you right now? And he goes back to God and he's like, God, I'm not worthy. They won't listen to me. And he's like, you must have made a mistake. And then he like claps back and he's just even more. And he's just like, I don't make mistakes. I chose you. You are a gift from God, and I'm demanding that you go. And I chose you to go and lead them out of Egypt, free the slaves, and go to find the promised land. So don't feel doubt. Everyone feels doubt. Moses felt doubt, but God selected him. God selected you. Don't let. I always reverted back to that saying again. In order for evil to prevail, good men must stand by and do nothing. Nazi Germany was a Christian-based a country. How many people turned blind eyes to dragging Jews in the middle of the street and executing 6.4 million Jews? So we talk about legalities and doing all this other stuff. Slavery was legal. I don't need a law to tell you. You don't need a law to tell you what is right and wrong. God tells you what's right and wrong. Do you think beating people and owning people was the right thing to do? No. So everyone took, there was carpetbaggers, there was people from the north who brought people up. Was that enough? No. That's why our world is so corrupt, because we stand by and let it happen. There's a great poem and a letter written in Germany, and it says, at first they came, and I'm going to butcher it up, but it says, at first they came for the mentally ill and the handicapped. Well, I'm not mentally ill and handicapped, so I didn't say anything. And then they took them away. And then they came for the Jews, and then they came for the African Americans, or the blacks. Well, I'm not black and I'm not Jewish, so I didn't say anything. And then they took them away. And then they came for the elderly, they came for the sick, and I'm not old and I'm not sick, so they took them away. But when they came to take me away, there was no one to stand against. We're talking about actions, not words. Be a man of action. Be a person of action. Trust in the Lord, just like that picture. Don't just believe in him, because anything can happen. All things can happen in his name, just like the story of saving Aziz. How else does 10 guys go and save 14,000 people out of Afghanistan as civilians? I'm telling you, anything can happen with God. I'm telling you, I'm standing here living today and read the book, and it's getting shot at by snipers, almost getting captured by Chinese soldiers out there, dodging the Russian KGB, the Chinese soldiers, the Taliban, and everything else from there, doing a 2-man unsupported operation. Why? Because God told me to. An undaunted trust and faith in the Lord. And that it was the right thing to do, because America turned their back on their own citizens and everything else and left them stranded in Afghanistan. And it was the right thing to do. So, well, I appreciate you guys giving me time today. I only had 30 minutes to do it. But you guys can catch me around base. You could follow, Mighty Oaks organization, or Mighty Oaks International is the other one that on the international programs manager through there. So we're going all around the globe on the front lines, doing the same, sharing the same thing, and sharing the word of God and doing God's work out there. I own and the founder and starter of Heroes for Humanity, which all we are is veterans, special operations veterans, doing the right thing for humanity for free, and it prides itself on that 0 people get paid and all 100% donations go to mission essentials only, and all we do is apply our tasks and our skills to go save children who are sexually trafficked across the world. So, yeah, so get involved. Get involved with your churches, get involved with the community, get involved with organizations, and then do something about it. So, thank you.